Well, let's call this meeting to order. The agenda is in front of you. Hereby, we need to adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second? Can I have a second? Okay, Amy's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, with that, there's no minutes from the present last meeting because we just talked about a few issues. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon. And we'll talk about what's transpired last night, thankfully, and we'll go on with and continue with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board, and for all those in attendance. We do have City Attorney David Syfan on board, as well as representative from Raymond James, Tom Owens, who's essentially the bond placement person. This journey began, you may recall back in June, I kind of touched base on the fact that we were exploring restructuring some of our existing debt through GFA loans, specifically 5 GFA loans, carrying a high interest for a number of years that had been taken out to do various water improvement projects, water installs, water tank. So we solicited the help of Tom Owens with Raymond James, who in turn has solicited bond counsel. And then obviously our city attorney's been crucial in putting together some of these documents as well. I will tell you that last night the mayor and council considered a city resolution, which essentially authorized us to enter into an intergovernmental installment agreement, and as well as bond placements, and basically to partner with the Downtown Development Authority in order to restructure this debt. So in layman's terms, Mr. Syfan can divulge into some of the legalese, but as of about 30 minutes or so ago, we've kind of finalized some documents we'll walk through in just a little bit. A resolution which essentially incorporates all the elements of restructuring the 5 loans into an agreement. And then well, it's kind of like refinancing your house. You've got your house, you want to take advantage of low interest rate. So we're taking 5 existing loans, bundling it up, and JP Morgan Chase is the firm that gave us a 1.14% interest rate for 12 years, yielding a savings of $383,000 over the period. That, along with some other capital we tout, will enable us to make investments into our water system. The monies are specifically restricted to water system improvements. So we've identified the Lilly tank water tower, the Woodbridge tank, which is actually city-owned, as 2 towers that need some attention, maintenance, and just some water improvement projects of replacements. So beyond that, it's pretty straightforward, but I know that the learning curve for a new board can be a little steeper. It's a normal practice where a DDA is a conduit for financing debt. You all are not on the hook for anything as much as you all are backed by the city's revenue bond, meaning that we actually, city's water revenues, water receipts pay for the debt. And if that, God forbid, something happens, then in effect we levy tax. But beyond that, kind of the simple version. And Mr. Chair, I'll kind of turn it over to David to specifically kind of advise y'all what we're looking for by way of motions or approvals. We can kind of walk through anything.
Brandon, before we start with that, where is the Lilly Tower? I just want to make sure the rest of the board knows. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that tower.
That one is, that has all the cell towers on it. So kind of behind the old high school, when you come into downtown and you see
Okay.
structure that everyone says probably needs to be repainted.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody on the board knows where that was, because I asked the question today, and but I want to make sure the board members knew that. Go ahead.
And with that, David, I'll kind of let you get.
All right.
Let you kind of start.
Thank you, Brandon. Since this is the first time y'all done anything like this, I was just going to give you some of the legal background as to why all this is so complicated that it is. And the reason for that is basically the state doesn't want cities and counties to incur a lot of debt. So there are all these debt limitations that the cities and counties have to deal with in trying to finance capital improvements. And as a part of that, there's a statute out there for both cities and counties that basically says that you can't bind a future council or a future board of commission beyond the term of their office. And so that sort of forces bond attorneys and city attorneys and county attorneys to look to the Intergovernmental Agreement Clause of the Georgia Constitution, which allows for up to 50-year agreements between DDAs and cities, or DDAs and counties, or cities and counties. And since most bonds, are at least 10 years and longer, they try to structure the financing by way of these intergovernmental agreements. And that's what's going on here. The issuing authority, the authority that's actually going to be issuing the bond, is going to be the DDA. And in order to issue the bond, the DDA is entering into what's called the Installment Sales Agreement. And in that agreement, the city, in effect, will deed over certain infrastructure of the water system to the DDA, and also covenant to make the bond payments. And then it's anticipated that the water and sewer revenues of the city system will be sufficient to make all those bond payments. And then at the end of the bond, which is June 1st of 2032, on the last payment, the DDA would in effect, since the city had made all the deed back to the city, all that water infrastructure. Since it's going to be a revenue bond, it does not have the debt restrictions that a general obligation bond has, because the DDA is in effect using the water and sewer revenues of the city to make the payments on the bond. So that's good. Another item that I think is important for you to know is, as Brandon pointed out, in all of the agreements, there is no personal liability for any of the board members in authorizing this. And essentially, the City of Jasper and the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund is going to be responsible for making these bond payments. The installment sales agreement also has a covenant by the city that, as Brandon indicated, that provides that if the water and sewer revenues aren't sufficient to make the bond payments, then the city covenants to levy an ad valorem tax to make up the difference or make up any shortfall. So what that does is it gives the bondholder sort of a double layer of security in that the revenues of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund are pledged, and plus the taxing power of the city is pledged. And sort of with that double guarantee, it allowed the city, through the great work of Tom Owens, with Raymond James, that we got an interest rate of 1.14, which is much below the GFA interest rates. So as Brandon indicated, this refinancing that we're doing will save the city $383,000 in interest. And it also allows us to get around $600,000 in new money at this cheaper interest rate that we can then use for water infrastructure projects. And the best thing about it is, or a great thing about it is that the annual payments of both principal and interest are about what we would have paid if we do nothing. So it's not like, it's going to cost us more money. We'd still have those same payments if we did nothing. And so we feel comfortable that the system can make the payments, and that this will help us do some much needed infrastructure projects. So what the bond resolution that Brandon has up does is it basically recites all the authority for how the DDA is authorized to do public projects for the public good. It also recognizes that the city it has the enterprise fund and needs financing for these projects. It authorizes the DDA and the city to enter into the Intergovernmental Installment Sale Agreement that is now before you, in which sets out all the requirements basically of the city to repay the bond, and also contains that covenant I told you about, that if those water and sewer revenues are insufficient, then the taxing power of the city has to be used. It also, the resolution authorizes the DDA to enter into a financing agreement with JP Morgan that's basically buying the bonds from us, from which we get the money to pay Chief off. And it finally authorizes you entering into a bond placement agreement. And that was basically just recognizing that the DDA will enter into this bond placement agreement to allow Tom to get reimbursed for the work he's basically already done,
Jack, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions for David? Okay, Brandon, what is the, in normal terms, and I'll just say that, David, because of all that you talked about, what, we just need to make we need to make a motion that we approve this, and do we need to read off some particular statement, or?
Typically what would happen is the bond resolution incorporates a lot of the elements that are needed for authorization of the secretary to sign. So typically a motion to the effect of approval of the bond resolution and all other relevant documents, including but not limited to the intergovernmental installment sale agreement and bond placement, all of which is included in the bond resolution, just to try to, that's why it's the 97 pages, is just to make it to where when you approve this, you're in effect approving all documents needed for execution.
Okay, so do I have a motion from the board about the bond resolution for the City of Jasper?
Guys, I make a motion that we accept the bond placement as part of the sales agreement for the purposes of improving the water sewage infrastructure project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And
That
I
was-
would suggest that that includes approval of the bond resolution to just so that the minutes are clear.
Okay, thank you, David. And who was that made the second?
That was me, Brad.
That's what I thought. I want to make sure. I can't remember your voice yet, Brad, so bear with me. All right, all those opposed, all those approved by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, and then the motion carries. Brandon, you want to talk about the easements?
Yes, sir. And with Mr. Syfan on, it's come to our attention. You may recall last month, or not last month, last week, we talked about the Georgia Power Reliability Project. And part of what's going on is last night the council approved 4 easements, whereupon Georgia Power, by virtue of utilizing city property to some power vault pads and whatnot, it got me thinking there's still some discrepancies in terms of, from the former administration to the new administration beginning this year, discrepancies of title work of some properties that are still in the DDA's name. And that is commonly referred for city property. So because we had broached the subject about the reliability project from Georgia Power, I thought it would at least be a good measure to follow up with y'all that council did approve the easement agreements, and I'll go through those in just a moment, subject to final approval from administration, Ian and others, to make sure that they're in a proper location. And by and large, we met with them today, and the lead off is the core downtown area. They're going to do some special locates subsurface to help radar some existing utilities because there's just a lot of unknowns. So I want to use this moment in time also to give y'all an update too, that within the next week or 2 or 3, you're going to start seeing a lot of activity. So make sure as a member of this board, you may get questions from other business owners or customers, residents, whomever, about what's going on. It's important for you that this is a Georgia Power Reliability Project of taking some 3-phase and some overhead aerial lines, putting them on the ground in strategic areas. Some of the areas along Burnt Mountain, Cove Road, Old 5 aren't as concerning to us about some of our existing utilities. But of course, in the core downtown area, there is just a web of lines that we first and foremost make sure they know they need to do all they can by doing some extra measures of locates. So that's just for y'all to know. This is the Spring Street area, the old Roper hospital property. It is, we've not had an opportunity, as y'all gotten sworn in June in the midst of a pandemic, for us to, I know Marty and some other folks kind of last year was part of the team that looked at some planned improvements for the little park area. But I did want to let you know specifically that this particular area did in fact the parking lot proposed. And I think strategically long term, as it develops out, any concept to implementation, this was probably still be a parking area. So any sort of use of utility boxes, et cetera, would not impede the future expansion of downtown park. So wanted y'all to be aware we're keeping that on the forefront. The police department, this parcel is identified as a DDA. Once again, I've not solicited David to do a title search. Council approved the agreement, easement, but in the event, as a good measure, I may ask y'all at the end of this to also ratify that, just in case it's revealed that, hey, some of these properties may still be in y'all's name, kind of like what we just did. But I've gotten some discrepancies from the former city attorney to David that began in January. I haven't really prioritized this just yet. The other one is the plant area. Once again, may not be of concern at all, but this was another area that we're going to pay special attention to because it's the lifeblood of business and residents to make sure we get it right. So they're going to do that subsurface radar type. I think they call it GRP or GPR or something. Then out at the cove, our water tank, raw water intake is there. So this has zero effect on downtown, but it was just part of the 4 easements that I wanted just to bring up. So mainly these 2 or 3, I think may still have some names of DDA on it. As the mayor and I talked about in council, and what I expressed to Georgia Power and the subcontractor Pike, is we're going to do all we can do to help the partner be successful, but also we want to make sure that our entire community knows that we are doing all we can to protect our water and sewer system, and that we're going to be very mindful to hold Pike and Georgia Power accountable for making sure our system is intact too. So some of the disruptions that may occur, it is kind of a necessary evil to put some overheads underground. So if you're on Georgia Power and you are very excited about this because it should reduce some outages during weather events. That vantage point, it's a good thing. So Mr. Chair and board members, if y'all have any questions for Mr. Syfan, or if I've botched it, David, feel free to correct me, but just thought it was important for y'all to be involved.
I thought that was accurate, Brandon, so you're good.
So there's no, at this time, you're just more bringing it to our attention, Brandon, just know what the easements are and what's occurring, but no voting on or any, I thought you said something about some names, but you're still working on those things right now, correct?
I would ask kind of preemptively because they do want to get started pretty soon. And so if in a week or two, if it's revealed, hey, Jack, you need to sign this because you're chair of DDA and, city approved it, but it's still under the DDA name, I wouldn't want to use this opportunity to ask y'all for, I guess, approval as well.
So we need approval for this. Can I have a motion that we approve the easements for the City of Jasper?
I make a motion that we accept the easement.
Dave, and can I have a second?
Motion seconded.
Okay. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Brandon, is there anything else we need to bring up?
Well, another event that an item, I don't know if I referenced it last week. Mr. Mayor is still on, and I really like for him to just kind of talk about some kind of an ordinance that was floated last night favorably, and we'll have a second reading or final consideration next week that has a pretty, I think, positive, significant impact on downtown and our business.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I might have a word, please.
Yes,
Then
sir.
I would say that that last night we really, as a mayor and council together, and this unanimous approved the first reading of an ordinance to allow us to have your patrons walk around the city of Jasper with an open container in their hands. So that will be, we will have another meeting next month, and for the final on that, and in preparation of the Penley Brewing Company coming, then we as the city of Jasper are trying to make them feel welcome, and all of the people that will be coming downtown also. So that's something that if you hear about that, the answer is yes, that we're going to press forward with that. And as I said again, it was unanimous by mayor and council.
That's great, Mr. Mayor. Does anybody on the board have any comments on that?
Sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely, especially for bringing the business in. It's going to be that we're going to be using these facilities and so on and so forth. So I think it's a great idea. And I applaud y'all for doing that.
Thank you. And
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, one more thing. I don't know, Brandon, if you brought this forward to them about the work that's going to be done on Cove Road, because they will hear about it. All the merchants will, and that's with the concrete barriers and the lighting. Have we brought that forward to this committee yet?
I don't know if I touched on it at the June 23rd meeting. I don't believe I talked about it last week unless it was in a passing moment.
We've been a little busy, so if you will bring that to them, I think that would be well received.
The sidewalk
yes.
project too, Brandon.
Yes, sir. They did, the council did approve for us to move forward with putting some of those concrete barriers at the edge of the road and the S curves. It's kind of a safety precaution, albeit it may seem like a very small thing relative to, the rock slides that happened, but last year we invested nearly $100,000 in having a geostabilization firm come out and scale back as much as we can, and they would put in 70 plus ton airbags to ensure the stability of some of the existing rocks. But in an effort just to keep motorists safe, we've going to try to line the S curves all the way up, barricades, as well as to illuminate the S curves. We're going to have Georgia Power install some street lights, so that way, as motorists are coming through from the top of the S curves all the way down, have some street lights. As Dr. Proctor mentioned, we've got a sidewalk project that is utilizing some SPLOST money throughout the area. I will have to admit that once we got approval of the preliminary list, we have not gotten a bid document together just yet to float it to the September 14th council meeting for final approval. Part of it is the fact that I have to be sensitive to our staffing limits. I think, Jack, you understand that I'm never busy, and the reality is I've tried to singularly focus and prioritize things because I found that it's best to get things done kind of in a successive manner. And I will tell you that my number one priority until the Georgia Reliability Project is done is to protect our water and sewer system for customers. Most, if not all of y'all are on it. So I've got 3 team leaders, David, Lonnie, and Adam, all of whom wear multiple hats, basically on pause a little bit. Even the Peace Park initiative that we've begun, when Georgia Power came to us and said what their time frame was, it caused me a little bit of hit the pause button to say, I have to be careful of not having too much of our crews spread out too thin, because we've got 6 subcontractors, Pike employees out there in 6 different locations. Maine were to get hit or break, I've got to have my equipment and people in the best possible position and location to move. So we're still moving forward and doing the best things we can. Some of this, like I said, the hour plus meeting with Pike today focused a little bit on downtown and some of the older sections of town. There's just a lot of unknowns, but a lot of good stuff. And once again, I just want to make sure that y'all know the investments that the mayor and council are doing to ensure, as Dr. Proctor said, the heartbeat of our community is the central business district, the downtown corridor, which does encapsulate a large area, but by and large, it's important. I mean, even the flags, we've got, I think, about 22 or so more city banners to put up once they arrive, so we can try to line the streets up with that. And we'll have another meeting, Mr. Chair and Board, as soon as I can catch my breath a little bit, and kind of have a planning session for the remainder of this year and in 2021. We got some ideas from a funding perspective to allocate a specific budget for you all to identify key projects, coupled with some additional monies that the mayor and council are continuing to invest in the area.
That sounds great, Brandon, and also Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see the S curves going up Cove Road. That's going to be something.
Yes.
When we put those corridors up, is it going to reduce our lanes, or is it going to be pretty much the same?
It will be the same. There'll be less of a shoulder, but my goal also, and I don't even think I've really expressed this to the elected body, so don't tell them. The whole world watches. My ultimate goal is to reduce the speed limit from the top of the curves to just be on the bridge, to sign it to about 25 miles an hour or so, just to, once again, demonstrate safety first.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask, if we probably might reduce the, you were thinking about what I was thinking, reducing the miles per hour down through there. That's great. That sounds wonderful. And again, that's something that we can put a feather in y'all's cap, and appreciate y'all doing that as well. Any of the other board members got a comment on that?
Mr. Chair, if I might, I want to have one concluding remark here, probably always. But I want to tell you that what you have done tonight, and I'll speak for Brandon and for Dr. Proctor, who was on this call, that you have moved our city forward, and that we gratefully appreciate your service on this most important board. And we thank you again for your service, because we will be calling on you in the very near future again.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that, but I wanted to let you know that the board members and I have talked, several of us have talked, and I'm going to have several other meetings under the sunshine laws, just 2 or 3 of us together. And I want to get some ideas from them, but we look forward to working with y'all and doing the right things and moving forward with our little city. So I appreciate that. Anything else, Brandon, I need to be aware of, or Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chair, before y'all adjourn, I just wanted to be sure that you were aware and that the secretary is aware for the DDA that we sort of got time deadlines on this bond issuance. So we need both you, Mr. Chair, and the secretary to get with Brandon, hopefully tomorrow morning, and sign the documents that were approved by the DDA tonight.
Yes, sir, David. And in fact, I've talked to Tara. I did get to talk to Brandon, because Brandon's never busy. You know, he can't get out. So, Tara just led me through this, and so we're meeting early in the morning. I'm sure Miss Amy will do the same thing. We'll get this signed in the morning, very fast and efficient. With that, I'm going to go talk about a couple items, and we'll go through this. At our last meeting, we were talking about the DDA class that we were supposed to be taking. It was supposed to be the last this month. That will open up on September the 1st. And at that time, you will sign up for that class. And it's ongoing. You do it at your pace. And it is paid for by somebody within the organization. I can't remember who. But anyway, just want to let you know, you got an email today on the DDA. And so be observant of that and try to put your name in the hat. And you can't sign up till September the 1st.
You're already signed up.
Okay, we are? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Amy, just a reminder, make sure and go by Integra and sign the, okay, you got it, okay. Mission statement. I was going to talk about that today, and me and Tara talked this morning, and what I'm going to do is, we got a mission statement that we've sort of looked at, but we're going to sign out and send out 2 or 3 mission statements from other communities. And what I want us to do is come together at our next meeting with some ideas and formulate a mission statement. But you can get some ideas from the statements we're going to be pushing out to you. And with Tara and advice and the rest of the board's advice, we're going to come up with a mission statement here pretty quick. So I want you to know that we're going to move on forward with it. So I'm just going to give you some ideas. Tara, was there anything else you want to say about that? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is, and Mr. Green, if you want to talk about this, September the 9th, write this down, September the 9th. It's on a Wednesday from 8 o'clock to 4:30 in LJ, Georgia. We will be meeting with the boards, the DDA of LJ and Fannin County. And we're going to be formulating just more or less trying to talk to each other, everybody to communicate. And with that, Mr. Green, I'm going to let you talk about it because you sort of gave me some insight today. But I look forward to us moving forward with the counties around us. So, Mr. Green, if you'll take over, I appreciate it.
Well, part of this is a bit of a duplication of the other class that the Regional Planning Commission is putting on. Remember, every board member of every development authority, joint development authority, and downtown development authority must get 8 hours of training approved of by the state. And so you've got multiple pathways of getting there. In an effort of regionalism, working with Gilmer and Fannin, one of our initiatives was to cook up a single class for the 3 counties for any and all board members from anyone in those counties to get their 8 hours, and then have all the various and have it all together at one time so that all of the various board members could meet and visit and talk and hear questions and understand what a development authority does, what a downtown development authority does, and even what a joint development authority can do, which in some cases is more powerful and has bigger incentives than either of the others. But the point is we're trying to put together another training class. This is paid for by the 3 development authorities for the 3 counties. And hopefully it'll be more than sitting in front of your computer for 8 hours, and lunch is included. So that's about it right there. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. By the way, it's put on by the University of Georgia, Carl Vincent Center.
Me and Mr. Green talked about that this afternoon actually this morning. And I think it's a great thing for us to look forward to. Again, that's September the 9th, and it's from 8 to 4:30. That's on a Wednesday. So please see if you can set that up so you can be there. I think it's a very big advantage for us. And plus, we can be looking for new ideas from other communities as well and meet the people up and down the road and communicate. So anybody else got any comment that they'd like to add to the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, is that something that we need to register for? Green, do we need to register for that meeting, or?
I think he's going to register. Mr. Green, we're going to register. You're going to register, aren't we?
If you like me to, I sent out that invitation that you got about 10 days ago that has the registration link on it. But if you need me to, I'll be glad to send out another one.
If you don't mind, because he didn't ask me today, and of course I didn't find mine. So, Mr. Green, if you'll send those out again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it also has the dietary questions, so you get to order your lunch a little bit if you have an issue with the ham and cheese sandwich.
Okay. All right. Anybody else who got any other questions?
Jack, if I may, just quickly, these, and maybe Green could answer this, or Brandon, the DDA class we have on, or sign up on the 1st, and the one we attend in person on the 9th, this will fulfill all of our requirements, our 8-hour requirements to be members of the DDA. Am I correct?
Yes,
about
either
this?
one.
Okay.
You'll be
thank
legally qualified if you attend either. You know,
Okay.
we're
So if
just
we
hoping to
attend
make
both,
it. Yeah, you can
Yes,
come to both because
right.
we're hoping to make it more valuable talking to other board members of different boards.
Right,
Here's just a kind of a straight up question. I think there'd be a lot of benefit in the joint one, obviously in person. Would it be a bit redundant to do the online one as well as the in person, or you think there'd be some things to be offered from both?
Well, from my experience of taking the one that's put on by the call Sidebar, basically you've got about an hour and a half in the morning to 2 hours that talks about what the legal laws and everything you're operating under, what you can and can't do legally. And then you have about an hour of ethics. And those are the real meat and potatoes of the 8-hour thing. And the rest of the program, whoever's putting it on gets to add whatever content they want into it. So, you know what I mean? I would expect you're going to find different content from one that's focused just on a DDA and what you're going to see for all 3 boards.
Okay, so there would be benefit to doing both.
If you have the time, it'll be great.
Okay, sounds good.
And Brad, that's on your own leisure. You're going to be looking at something, and so you do that as you want to. And you got a pretty good lengthy time, from my understanding, to do that. So it's not done in a week or so. I mean, you got a month or 2 or whatever, I think, before you can finish whatever you need to do on that September 1st meeting. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the meeting tonight? I'm just going to tell you, I'm really looking forward to this group. I know Robin and Brad wasn't on the last meeting, but I am, with the people that I've got on this board, I really look forward to what's fixing to transpire. I just can't wait to see what we're going to do. I think there's going to be heads turning, and hopefully we will turn some heads. But at the same time, I want to look forward to the opportunities that exist in this little town that we can transpire and do some good things with. With that, I don't know when our next meeting will be. I will get with Brandon if I can get with him the next day or so, because he's never busy. But I will see if I can have set up an appointment. In fact, I told him today that I was going to try to say, Brandon, can we meet like at 9 o'clock the next morning? Well, I went this morning and he was there and been on the phone. He said, I'm on the phone since 8 o'clock. So I don't know how it works.
8:03, and I'm not going to
8:03, yeah.
anybody who may be.
That was my fault.
I'm not gonna blame anybody.
I sort of figured who that might be, but I didn't want to say anything. But at any rate, I look forward to getting with Brandon and Steve and the mayor and moving forward. With that, I'll stay in touch and let you know what's going on. And again, don't forget September the 1st and September the 9th. And I'll try to get with Brandon in the next couple of days and set up another meeting, and we'll start working on this mission statement. I'll get with Tara, and we'll send out some of the communities around us, and we'll get some ideas from them, and we'll work on this, because I think this is a big statement, and we want to make it, and we want to pronounce our statement. With that, if anybody got any questions or anything they'd like to add?
Jack, not to extend everybody. When is I know the sunshine law thing comes into play, what is the rules for yes and no on just in-person meeting? I know we got the pandemic stuff going on. When can we actually have a informal or a formal in-person meeting?
Well, if I may, and Brandon or the mayor can, or Sonny can intervene, or even the lawyer, we can meet as long as we don't have a quorum. In other words, if we have 3 people, we're okay. And we can talk. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you, Brad, I'm going to get with you and Robin. I haven't, and when Robin gets feeling better, but I want to sit down and talk because I want to talk to you just like I did David and Dave and Amy. but we want to move, and of course, Marty as well. Marty has been on the Alliance Committee with me, and he was one of the past members, and I want to get his insight. I told Mr. Green today that I'm going to meet with him when I get back on vacation. By the way, I will be on vacation from Saturday, this coming Saturday, till the next Saturday, and my phone will be off. I will not answer. I'm just going to tell you all that right now.
How dare you, sir?
Don't think to call me. But with that, I'm going to adjourn and thank y'all for everything, Mr. Mayor and Brandon and the rest of the group, and a great meeting. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.